And the nation was able to produce the Christ who came into the world and provided salvation for all of us, right? Jeremiah could see that. And Jeremiah would not allow people trying to encourage him to be average, trying to encourage him to be like the rest, to go along with the program. He would not allow the voices around him to stop him from fulfilling God's program, to mar his bigger vision of the world out there, the scheme of redemption, and the important place that he had in God's great production. We've been working on some television shows, and it reminds me of what happens in a television show. Everybody has their part in the production, and there's only one director. Well, the director's God. And Jeremiah, here's your part. Will you play it? He played his part, and as a result, we're saved today. Okay? If he would not have played his part, I wonder where we would be today. Again, folks, Jeremiah had to play his part. Now, let me bring this on to the 20th century, okay? Well, before we go to the 20th century, whenever we go to the New Testament, we see that Jesus raised up giant men, right? He took 12 ordinary men and said, look, I want you to leave being average and become giants. I'm going to help you see some things you've never seen before. I'm going to help you catch a vision of the world being different. Okay? And those 12 men went out preaching and turned the world upside down. They left preachers at certain places to establish and develop leaderships, that these leaderships might be giants, that they might show the face of God to the world, or show the face of God to the church, that the church might show the face of God to the world. Now, we take it a step further. When we look at the church of the 20th century, in a lot of ways, we have failed to produce giants. We have failed to produce giants in the church of the 20th century. Somehow, in our affluent Western society, we've got caught up with making livings. We've got caught up in our own things, and what we do is give a little. We give a little to the hungry, we give a little to the contribution, and then we say, now I can go home and deal with the football game, I can go home and do my thing, and I could just, all this time is now mine. If Jeremiah would have said that, we wouldn't be here today. If Jesus would have said that, we would not be here today. If John the Baptist would have said that, we would not have been here today. You think about some awful statistics, folks. Ebony Magazine, December issue. I read it. There's an article in there on killing. 45% of all homicides in this nation are black. Okay? We only represent 11.5% of the population. If 45% are being murdered, then we're on our way out. Okay? Did you hear what I said, folks? We are on our way out of here. Okay? 4 times the percentage of the population is the percentage of homicides. The number one cause of death for black males between the ages of 14 and 44 is homicide. 1 in 21 black males will be murdered, as opposed to 1 in 131 white males. 9 out of 10 black males who are murdered will be murdered by another black. 90% of those murdered, it's drug-related, gang-related. Right down the street is the babysitter that we used while we were living down here. And she called my wife one day and told her a story about something that had just happened in front of a house. An old man saw these kids, these young adults, on his grass, and they were dealing drugs. They were using drugs and dealing drugs on his grass. He asked them to get off. They wouldn't. He called the police. The police took a long time to get there. So he kept asking, kept asking. Then he started demanding. And they kept telling him off and insulting him. And the man was in his 70s, and so he went back in the house and got his gun. And as he walked out, the police drove up and shot him 13 times. Did not question any of the kids on the lawn. Did not question any of them. Did not take any in. They got up and walked down the street to another lawn. Folks, I don't know what you believe about what's going on, but I believe that what we gained in the 60s, we've lost in drugs. Okay? In other words, we gained the right to go to this college, that college. But then drugs hit our streets, and the appetite to go to college left us. Can you imagine the cure to cancer, or the guy who had the mind to develop the cure for cancer is probably in the cemetery? The guy who probably has the cure for curing leukemia is probably in the cemetery. That mind. Now, folks, the only thing I want this statistic to do for us here today is to create an urgency to be giants. Okay? You see, the drug addict is a little person. The drug dealer is a little person, not looking at the long-range effects. He only cares about one person, one thing, and that is himself and his little diamonds to impress his friends. And we in the church are looking at these people saying, oh, they're bad, and they're going to get even worse, and there's no way to stop them. Do you know the only deterrent to my son Donnie making $3,000 a day selling drugs and going to college and contributing something back to his community is his God, who he meets through his church? Okay? But if he attends a church with a bunch of little people, the deterrent will be gone. Okay? One of the greatest enemies, the greatest menaces to our community, the black community, is the jackleg preacher. Okay? Who doesn't study, doesn't teach. All he's interested in is money. He talks about his experiences instead of the word. Okay? My goal through the bookstore is to put that guy out of business. We teach all his people. And once they're taught and educated, they can't sit under that garbage anymore. I get on the radio and I talk right behind them. Because this guy, when the drug addict comes close to a death situation, he brushes very close with death. He runs back to the haven of his culture, and that is his church. And when he sees corruption in that church, a bunch of little people in that church, he has no other place to go but back out. Now, folks, here is the challenge to us at West Adams. We must become giants. Get out of our local situations. I don't know why we believe that we have to be small, stay small. I don't know why we have to believe that the world is going to get worse and worse and we can't change it. I remember a man by the name of Winston Churchill.